So I got a funny story for you guys today. It involves a furry that I met in my high school years, and I really just want to immortalize this story because it's my favorite story to tell people. And a little disclaimer, my storytelling skills aren't really that good, but I hope you guys will enjoy this story anyway. So with that, let's begin. So be me, junior in high school, scene haircut, Naruto t-shirt, and a flannel. And I'm in algebra class, and I sit next to this girl. We can call her Carrie. That seems like a good name. And me and Carrie weren't, like, friends. We were kind of like acquaintances. Like, her friends were friends with me, but her and I weren't really friends. I don't know. I feel like Carrie had this thing against me. We were very civil to each other, like, enough to sit next to each other during algebra and, like, talk to each other, but we were never really friends. I remember one time I asked her if I could hang out with her and everybody else, and she just flat out looked at me and was like, no. So, I mean, you can kind of get the gist that her attitude wasn't necessarily great towards me, but we were still sociable. It was fine. And like I said, we sat next to each other in algebra, and one day we were sitting and talking, and I was talking about, like, fictional characters that I really like, because I was really into anime, and I mean, I still am, but I've gotten better, don't worry. I've recovered from my weeaboo phase, and I was talking about Orochimaru, because I love Orochimaru. Orochimaru is so important to me. He's literally the only reason I watch Boruto anymore. And I was just talking about how cute he was, whatever. And she turns to me, and she says, you know what I think is really hot? And I don't know what I was expecting from her. I was expecting her to say some kind of, like, movie character, some kind of actor. I don't know. Tom Hiddleston? I don't know. And this girl, Carrie, she looks at me and she says to me with a straight face, she's like, I think deer men are pretty hot. And I had no words because I didn't know what a deer man was. So I just stared at her, and Carrie was like, here, I'll show you. So she gets out her iPad, because we all had iPads in high school. They started that like my sophomore year. So she gets out her iPad and she goes on Fur Affinity. And if you're here, you probably know what Fur Affinity is. If you don't, it's like an art site for furries, kind of like DeviantArt, but like specifically furries. So she goes on there, and she shows me this, like, plethora of, like, soft-core deer porn, and she was going through, like, each individual photo, like, each individual drawing, and some of them are, like, really good drawing, like, these artists have skills, but, like, I saw so much, like, ass and titties on a deer, and I was just so confused. Sorry if I'm laughing, I think it's really funny. But she would, like, go through these, like, hypersexual photos of, like, deer men, I don't know. And her favorite one that she showed me, because she would go through the photos, right? And she would, like, say things like, ooh, wow, or ooh, that's hot, or like, oh my god. She would make gross noises looking at these photos of, like, deer with bulges, okay? Have you ever seen a human penis on a deer? Because I have, and it's not good, okay? Anyway, so she pulls up her favorite picture, and it's this photo of, like, a deer man, okay? And the deer man, he had his, like, back to the viewer, but his head was, like, turned, so his head was, like, facing you, but you saw, like, the whole back of him, right? And she was like, this picture's so good. And literally, this deer had a fat ass. Like, and I just remember staring at it, like, are you sexually attracted to deer? Like, are you okay? Are you allowed in the zoo? Like, are you allowed to be in the woods alone? Like, are you trying to fuck this deer? And I remember her just, like, showing me all these photos of, like, deer in, like, with, like, bulges, like big-ass dicks. Like, it was just the strangest shit to me. And I remember her just saying, like, how, like, turned on she was because of these deer photos. And I remember thinking of that, like, quote that's like, do you think God stays in heaven because he too lives in fear of what he's created? And honestly, I wouldn't blame him, because this shit was weird. And I know a lot of furries are like, oh, well, we don't want to fuck animals. Like, not all of us want to fuck animals. This girl wanted to fuck deer, okay? I say that with full confidence, okay? Like, this girl was hungry for some deer dick, alright? Shit was wild. And I remember just staring at her and was like, oh, yeah, Carrie, that's some nice art. Yeah, I totally see why you want to fuck some deer. That's interesting. And then class started. Mr. Great, I'm gonna call him Mr. Great, my algebra teacher, he started class, and, you know, I don't think I ever talked to her again in person. I think the last time I ever had any kind of contact with Carrie was when she posted on Facebook about how anime titties are not realistic and they look ridiculous, and then I remember commenting on the post and I said, girl, you draw dicks and titties on animals, shut the fuck up. And then she blocked me and I never talked to her again. But from what I hear around town, she just kind of doesn't really do much, so I mean, whatever, man. And yeah, that was my story on how I met a furry who wanted to fuck some deer and then showed me her weird plethora of softcore deer porn. And I unfortunately can say that I've seen a deer with a fat ass in my life, and I hope you guys enjoy this story and thought it was as funny as I did, because I'm still scarred from it. So yeah, that's my story. Have a nice day.